after you've downloaded your lesson for this week, I have just an example here I want to show you, just so you have a more familiar idea with what to look for and what you need to teach and focus on each week as you're teaching the kids. The first page of the lesson plan is the Leader Bible Study. Now, a lot of people don't read this, but I actually strongly recommend this, and I often read this myself before I get into it, because it does give me a good perspective of what it is I'm going to be teaching. And sometimes there's things in this Leader Bible Study for an adult that I think work really well with the kids. So I definitely recommend reading through it. It's just one page, doesn't take very long to do. The second page is just a Bible study overview. You can usually skip past that. It just kind of gives you what it is, and it's the same every single week, and once you've looked through it, you kind of understand what it is. So you can skip through that. The page after that is the Bible story. Now, if you choose to, you can just watch the video that we actually show in large group. So then you don't really need to read the Bible story again, because it's the exact same script that they use in the videos. But if you don't want to watch the video, the script is there for you to just read through, so you're familiar with what the story will be on. Then the main thing is that you need to look at is the one that says small group opening. That'll be the first 10 minutes or so of your class time, as well as give you activities that you could use after our large group time. So for the first 10 minutes of class, so if you're volunteering at 9 o'clock, that'd be from 9 to 9:10, maybe even a little bit before 9 o'clock. If you're volunteering for the 10:30 service, we ask that you're in large group by 10:40, so the time between when the kids start arriving till about 10:40, this is some of the materials that you can use. Now, one of the things that it always has on here is an activity page, which is available in the filing cabinets for each student, so you can use that as part of that time. There's also, you can do some free time, free play time. It gives you some activities that you can do, or you can just do the arriving activity, which it says here. A lot of times they're just simple games or just simple questions to ask the kids to kind of get to know them and get them ready for the lesson that they're about to learn. In this particular lesson, it has a few options for a session starter. One of the options, it has a big stamp on it that says low prep. That generally means there's not much outside resources needed, sometimes nothing that is needed to prepare. It's just a game that the kids can play or something like that where you don't have to gather a lot of supplies. And then there's another option 2, and then on the left-hand side of option 2, it lists the supplies you need. So for instance, this one says you need a large piece of paper, markers, and dry erase board markers, which is an optional item. But all of those things we have here at the church already, so this would be an easy one as well to do. And again, you don't have to do this in that first part of the time. Sometimes these session starter activities would work great for an activity to do after large group, so feel free to use them anytime during that Sunday school hour. Then we'll get to the large group leader stuff, and if you aren't leading large group, which most of you are not doing, so you can pretty much skip right through that. You don't have to read it or anything, and that's stuff that'll be covered in large group. Then after all the large group pages, there's quite a few of those pages. There's usually like 10 or 12 pages there. And then it gets to the gospel, God's plan for me. This isn't something we use here at Autumn Ridge. We generally use the gospel message of the ABCs to admit, believe, and choose. So you can kind of skip through that. And then you get to the next one that says small group leader. That's generally page 13. The small group leader portion, this is some more activities, more stuff that you can use for after the large group portion of the time. Now, I recommend you use all of this after the large group portion, or not all of it, but I recommend you wouldn't use this during the beginning of the session before large group. The kids will have a hard time understanding what's going on. But it gives you a key passage activity with each unit. There's always a memory verse that we cover. You can choose to go over that, but again, you don't have to, because I don't expect a lot of these kids to memorize all these verses, because the fact of the matter is many of these kids aren't even going to be here every week. And so you just have a certain amount of time to teach these kids. If you're really strongly about this memory verse, or maybe the verse just really does a great job at explaining the story itself, then feel free to focus in on that memory verse. But if not, don't feel bad about not covering it that week. The next portion is the Bible story review. That just basically gives you, sometimes it gives you an activity, sometimes it just has you review the story briefly. This is a good way to get the kids to come back and calm them down a little bit, make sure that they really understood what was talked about in large group. Again, you don't have to do this, but I know many teachers do choose to do a portion of this, but not always as long as it is. It could just be a matter of doing it for 5 minutes and then moving on to the next activity. Then after that, it gives you a couple of options again for an activity choice. It has the low prep for one of the activity choices, meaning there's very few, if any, things that you'll need outside of what we already have in a classroom, like scissors, glue sticks, markers, stuff like that. You won't need to go outside and prep with a lot of that. So you can choose which one or both depending on how much time you feel you'll have. Generally, after a large group, you have about a half hour of time before parents start arriving to get the kids. After that, first option there was a low prep option. Then it gives you a much higher prep option, which don't be scared of it. If you had the time this week to go through it and you're able to get to church a little bit early, a lot of this stuff we have in our resource room, and I really, really want to emphasize that you can do this. It's not as hard as it seems. And please involve the helpers that you have in your classroom. Find a way to get a hold of them. If you don't know how to get a hold of them, contact me. I'll give you their contact information, and you can call them and say, hey, here's what we're planning to do. I was wondering if you could show up early and help me out with preparing a lot of this stuff. Utilize them, and a lot of them will be more than willing to do so. So option 2 here on this particular lesson is paper foam sheet or construction paper. We have that. Sticky notes, we've got lots of those in the church. Adhesive hook and loop fasteners, so Velcro. We sometimes carry some of that, sometimes we don't. If you're not sure, you can let me know, or you can feel free to get it yourself, or if you let me know on a Saturday, I can pick it up before Sunday morning at Walmart or something and bring it here for your class to have. Then scissors, markers, and stickers, and we have all of that stuff already here, so really it's not that much to do. Just because it doesn't have the low prep stamp doesn't mean it's going to be something hard. But again, you probably won't have time to do all of these things in your half hour that you have with the kids. So you really have to pick and choose what it is that you feel would be important to do, what's the kids going to really engage with, and how are we going to get this big picture question across to the kids as well as we can. Because that's one thing that we want to make sure the kids get at the end of the day. The next thing is a journal and prayer, and this can be something, you know what, if you planned all these activities and you happen to end early, this is something that all the kids can do, and I recommend doing it if you have the time. But if you don't have the time, then feel free to skip it. It's not a really important thing to do. The journal and prayer is just time. We have the journal pages again in the filing cabinet. This is just a time that you can have the kids maybe write down a prayer request, or draw a picture of what it is that they learned that day, or write out what they learned that day. Have them write the verse on the paper, or whatever you think of that would be great to reinforce the lesson for that day. And then on the lesson plan will give you all the extra pages, and all of this extra pages after page 16 are things that we already have for you in the filing cabinet. But if you want to look at them beforehand, they're there for you to look at, but you don't have to print them off or anything like that. They're all available. So the next one is the journal page. Then we have the many different versions of the memory verse. We use the NIV version of the memory verse, so you don't have to worry about that. We'll have that up on a slide. I already have a poster of the verse located in the filing cabinet, or it might be pinned up on the wall already from a teacher from a previous week. So don't worry about trying to figure out, well, which one do I do? It'll be here for you. And again, it's the NIV version that we use because that's the one that matches the Bibles that we have. And then you'll get to the big picture question. For instance, this week's question that I'm looking at here is, how can we honor God? And that's one of the things that we really want to focus in on with our lesson. If there's one thing we want the kids to come away with, we want them to know the answer to these big picture questions. So for instance, this one is, how can we honor God? And the answer to it is, we can put God first in our lives. And if the kids can understand what that means, what it means to put God first in our lives, or even just know the answer to that question, then it's a success. Then you get to the big picture right here with, this one happens to just show a few oxes and moving around. It says Haggai. So these are just reinforcements for the kids to just have something visual to understand what was the story about today, what was that big picture question, and they can all correlate those things together. Then you have the activity page. Now for younger and older kids, you'll have if you're teaching 3rd grade, you'll have an older version of these things, and there'll be 2 sides of activity pages. If you're doing one of the younger kids' classes, kindergarten, 1st, 2nd grade, one side will be an activity page, the other side will be a coloring page. And that's it. There really isn't anything else left to talk about. If you have any other questions, feel free to ask me. But again, like I said, at 9:10, We go to large group in the summit room. If you're teaching 9 o'clock, where we'll do music, then we'll do the large group teaching, we'll show the video of the story. The large group teacher will reinforce these lessons and things that we're learning, and then send you back to your small group class. So at 9 o'clock, you get there at 9:10 for the 10:30 service at 10:40. And again, you'll have about a half an hour to do more reinforcements through activities or games, or just sitting down, having the kids open up their Bibles. Is always a good thing to do, because a lot of these kids they never open their Bibles at home, and this is a chance to introduce them to a great book. So if you have any questions, feel free to send me a text, a phone call, an email, anything. I'm always open to hear. If you need any supplies, again, I want to just let you know that I can come and I can look, and I know a lot of the stuff that we already have in the resource room without even looking. So I can tell you if we have enough or if we won't have enough, and if we don't, I can get it for you. That's not a problem. I just want to be able to give you guys everything that you need to have a great time here in Sunday school. And hopefully you don't have to do a whole lot of preparation. I mean, this really shouldn't take that long. A lot of the work has been done for us. We just need to be there to interact with the kids, to get to know the kids, and to just be someone there that they can trust and that they can love. So if any questions, just let me know. All right, we'll see you Sunday.